Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we are back.
We are back.
I'm Jason Kreidman.
I'm Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads. You like that?
I do like it. This, the cadence.
I sometimes try to be official, but I never can have the deep voice and the exciting inflection as you have. So welcome to another exciting episode 122.
Yeah.
Today's topic is about separation anxiety. Have you ever heard this term?
I have heard of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. You studied psychology.
I did, yeah.
It's separation anxiety, helping your child manage their fears and nerves.
Huh, okay.
So nearly every child goes through a period when they get really clingy, they get upset that their parent is going to leave them.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is, typically babies will show this, somewhere around like 6-7 months, something like
early
that.
as
Yeah,
that,
early.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it can be
Okay.
as early as that. It typically peaks around 10 to 18 months. And I got this information from the internet. This is not me throwing it out of my intestines.
Right. Okay.
And the internet never lies.
Of course. It's always factual.
If it is on the internet, it's true.
Totally.
But it usually reduces when they're about 2 years old. Okay. So it's like they have this, when they're 18 months, it's like this time when they become so fearful and anxious and such of when their parents are leaving or whoever their caregiver is.
Yeah.
And so literally, when they're about 2 years old or so, that's when it starts reducing. And so there's some things that you can do to help your baby, have a little less anxiety, a little less stress about that. So I just wanted to give a couple of quick tips about this.
Sure.
So the first thing is getting familiar with the caregiver. Okay.
Yes.
And this sort of makes this is common sense, but basically if you have a very small baby and there's a brand new person that's going to watch the baby and you're like, hey, see ya, that can prove to be difficult.
Yeah.
So you want to give the baby some time to get to know the person. And so, of course, if it's a family member and the more time they spend around the person, or it's a nanny or something like that. But if you're, let's just say you are a couple, you have a new baby and you hire some babysitter, random, and the kid is 1.5.
Yeah.
They're probably going to have some issues.
They're going to freak out a little. Who's the stranger in my house?
Who is the stranger and why? And I think, of course, it depends on the environment that the child has grown up in, where there's some families where there's always different people around, different people holding the baby. That might be okay. But if you're sort of been in isolation and it's you two and the baby, and all of a sudden you want to go out or you're going to do something, that may cause a little bit of anxiousness.
Sure. I think it would make me anxious if I
Totally
had someone just randomly come to my house.
No. Another tip is to start small.
Yeah.
So in other words, don't try to go, and leave for a long period of time. You want to do something that's a short stint. That could be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that.
Right.
Don't just try to go, half day and I'm gone. And I think this actually is something that I think a lot of new parents struggle with anyways, is leaving the baby is not an easy thing to do.
For sure. Yeah. And then, even a lot of people don't really have much choice. They have to go back to work.
Right.
So they have to kind of, make that decision in a hurry.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the luxury of having family members around, so they have to find a babysitter.
Yeah, I mean, that could be work. It could be, if you have a parent that stays with the baby, so let's say one of the parents stays at home all the time, and then in the evening you say, hey, we're going to go out or something. Like I said, if it's a brand new person, that can be a little bit intimidating.
For sure.
So, so that's the case. Another one, say goodbye. So what happens, and I remember this situation where my wife and I were going out, and we just if our, I think it was when our son was born. It's okay, he's playing over there. Let's leave. You're you know what I'm saying? He's not going to know we're gone. Let's just go.
Just trick him into.
Yeah, just trick him, and by the time we're gone, we won't have to deal with it. Whatever. It apparently is not a good way to deal with it. They're suggesting that you do say goodbye.
Yeah.
Don't sneak out the back of the house or something. You disappearing on the child is not very nice. So you also don't want to cry or make it dramatic yourself.
For sure.
So, just saying a nice, simple goodbye or giving them a quick kiss or hug, hey, see you later. We'll be back soon.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Kind of reassuring them. I think that's a good thing to do, even if they don't quite understand, because then they get used to that when you do that inflection,
right,
that means I'm coming back.
Right.
And then you get them trained to believe that, and then they start associating that inflection in that moment with, oh, they're coming back.
Yeah, you don't want to make a big deal out of the situation because they can feed off your emotion, and they know, like, oh, why is mom crying right now?
Right.
I'm going to cry too because it's a big deal that she's leaving or, whatever. So that's just something I think that you have to take in consideration is, but here's the reality as a new parent is it's going to happen. On both sides. It's going to happen that your child is going to be upset when you leave.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel like crap about it. It's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
And I remember that where my wife and I wanted to go on a date and child's crying. And we both were like looking at each other like, oh, do we really want to do that? And we're like, we just have to. And we go, and you're like,
right.
hold each other's hand. Like, we'll make this, we'll be able to do it. I mean, cause you need that time, and so it's not easy. And especially when you see your child crying and upset and that it's because of you.
Faces pressed up against the window.
Ouch. Yeah.
You're leaving me.
Another tip is make it routine. So, it's good practice to leave every once in a while for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And having the child with you at every single moment will have them expect that.
Yeah.
As you're kind of setting up yourself for expectation. So, it's great where somebody can bring the child everywhere, they go everywhere. But then the fact is when the child is very small, they're going to be like, whoa, what's going on? Like, this is not normal. Whereas, if you're somebody who does take them to daycare, like the child's used to doing it, and of course, maybe in the beginning it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But, they're going to get it. They're going to be okay with it.
Right.
So, there's a lot of different tips and things to sort of be sensitive to. The best thing to understand is, as the dad, is this is a normal behavior. Like, my kid's a wimp, or, like, why are they crying? We'll be right back. You have to be a little empathetic to it.
Sure.
That it just is something that they said almost all kids go through.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Pretty much every kid goes through this.
They're brand new to the world.
Yeah.
And,
so what happens, though, when the child continues to have separation anxiety after that age?
Okay.
So that's something that I kind of wanted to touch on, too, is, when the child gets a little bit older, and and it's going to happen, hey, new experience, like as an example, like they're going to go to kindergarten, or you're going to a new place, like their first sleepover. I mean, there's all kinds of situations where that is like, I think that's somewhat normal.
Sure.
It's not a, hey, I'm just leaving for a half hour and the child is going nuts, because that can happen. I mean, that's the fact is, the child will do everything in their power to make you feel bad so that you'll stay. No, I can't stand this. I'm not going to. They'll throw a tantrum. They'll go crazy.
Yeah.
And that reduces as they become more comfortable with the fact that, hey, I'm going to see them again, and I trust them. But it does occur where, and this was according to WebMD, so of course it
got to be true.
It has to be true.
It's all fact.
That if the child is over 6 years old and still having like extreme fear for an extended period of time, that they could have what's called separation anxiety disorder. So it's an actual real disorder. They said it affects approximately 4 to 5% of children in the U.S. age 7 to 11.
Wow.
So it's not a huge percentage, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it.
Sure.
But there's some points I want to make. It only affects about 1.3% of teens. So actually people into their teen life, and it can actually affect
still
them
a thing, huh? Even into your teenage
years.
Yeah,
it's small.
It could be.
But
yeah.
And both the boys and girls equal.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
There's no gender
doesn't
bias.
Matter. No.
Yeah.
And so, this kind of thing is usually treated with either, psychotherapy or medications, including, some maybe antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. If you do have a situation like that where you feel like it's an extended period of time that they're upset, meaning, children will often, obviously, like I said, those kind of moments where they're going to school for the first time, or maybe it's a new babysitter, or they're being left somewhere, or an event, or overnight, or like that. That can be expected. It's like their first experiences, their fear, they're scared or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you do feel like it's bigger than that, definitely seek professional help. I mean, because this is real. This is a real disorder with real problems, and it can have a big effect on them.
Sure.
Just causing the stress and all of that. So there's a lot of things that I think, especially if you're seeking a professional, where you can learn different techniques on how to deal with it, as well as the child dealing with it. Or if it has to get to the level of medication, that can be a solution as well, to where they're then weaned off of that and learn new techniques and such.
Right.
I think as parents, I think and the reason I was mentioning this, because the percentages are small.
Right.
And the reason I was mentioning that is I think as parents, especially when we're new parents, we feel like that even when they're, let's say, a year and a half, 2 years old, they're going to have that forever.
Right.
That's I remember feeling that, whether it was about sleep, whether it was about this, if I don't fix this now, they're going to have this for the rest of their life. They're not going to be able to go away to college. There's there's that kind of that feeling that I need to curb this now.
Sure.
And so what I was getting at is as a parent, to make sure that you feel and understand that it's okay that this is happening, and that most likely it doesn't continue.
Right.
The 4 to 5%, that's a small percentage.
It is.
It exists.
Yeah.
But I think there are some things that you can do also to help reduce that. And I think
because you do want to help them
on
some level to make sure they understand.
And there's some arguments. I was reading different things, and I think there's some arguments some of it can be genetic, meaning when you have a parent that has anxiety, that can be passed on, but even more so is the behavior that they watch. So if you have a parent that has a lot of anxieties and fears and things like that, that's easily passed down to a child who's watching that behavior.
Right.
That can be done. And then the other would be is how you deal with them is a big thing too. So, you're wanting to reinforce their independence and their self-esteem, and oftentimes that's part of why this exists as they get into older age.
Sure.
Is because their self-esteem and their self-worth or their independence hasn't been developed,
Right.
Which I feel like that's a future episode, for the podcast.
Yeah,
So
I think so.
take notes on that. Really allowing them to do things for themselves, allowing them to try and fail, I think is important.
Right.
That it really makes sense. We don't need to do everything for them. And a lot of parents have good intentions. It's just not helping them by doing everything for them.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that just goes along with it too. It's you're not allowing them to be independent. They don't feel strong. They don't feel confident in themselves. That's not going to allow them to be separated from you.
Right.
They're going to have that dependence. So, things from, getting things for them, getting dressed, feeding them, cleaning up, these are all things that we do as parents, thinking that we're helping them. By doing these things. In reality, we're not helping them.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Not giving them a sense of independence.
Right.
Is the thing. Yeah.
Right. So I think helping them build those skills for themselves, it'll help you and it will help them.
Sure.
Because this is real. I mean, this is something where, as a parent, you really don't often know how to handle it. And so I think it's important to understand that, kind of the takeaways from this is that it's normal. The child's going to have the anxieties and the fears when they're in early age. I mean, I recall both of my children. It's whether it was my wife was leaving or they didn't care so much about me. Well, I didn't spend as much time on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But when my wife would leave and they would be clinging to her leg.
Yeah.
And just wouldn't let her go anywhere, and that just. It kind of subsides after a while.
Sure.
I mean, like I said, there's still those situations that you are going to deal with, and they're going to have some anxieties about it, but it's really just about being empathetic and saying, you know what, I can see that's fearful. Like, this is a big deal. Like, it's the first time doing blah, 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 whatever. And so just understanding that it's a normal thing.
Right.
Certainly do not get mad at them.
Yeah. Total wrong reaction.
Yeah. Well, as a dad, I think we think of it as like toughness, or I would think, even let's even, be frank about like little boys, where a dad is sitting there with a little boy, like, hey, be tough. Come on. No, it's like, it's just their normal behavior.
Yeah.
That's not about being tough. That's like, it's normal adolescence.
Yeah. You got to let them go through it.
Yeah. Let them go through it and feel it. So, if anybody has any tips, suggestions, maybe some input on some of the things that they've done to work on this, Alan, what should they do?
Email us at podcasts@dudesToDads.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter @DudesToDads or Facebook, DudesToDads.com. And at the very least, go to YouTube, go to iTunes, which is Apple Podcast, and go to Stitcher. And leave some reviews, and preferably a thumbs up or 5 stars or whatever.
I'll take 5-star.
5 stars would be good. Yeah. And some comments would be great too, but definitely the 5-star reviews really helps perpetuate the show.
Awesome. Anything else on separation anxiety?
No, I think we're good.
You haven't experienced that within the last couple weeks. Well, you told me that when you leave here, you have a little bit of separation anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, so do I. Hey, we
all
admit it.
That means I got to go do stuff.
It's the bromance. There you go.
There you go.
All right. Well, with that, we'll have another exciting episode ready for you next week, and we'll see you then.
See you then.